Welcome to episode 3 of the DPHRO Partners podcast. I'm Kevin from Borealis Digital Marketing, and as part of our ongoing legal education series, I'll be speaking with healthcare law attorney Nicole Martell. Hi, Nicole.
Hey, Kevin. Excited to be here.
Thank you. Thank you for making time. Nicole is a senior partner at DPHRO Partners with years of experience representing both plaintiffs and defendants in complex medical malpractice litigation, as well as a wide range of healthcare related legal matters. In today's episode, we're diving into one of the fastest evolving areas in healthcare law: artificial intelligence, telehealth, and how these technologies are reshaping medical liability. So let's kick it off by just talking about the rise of AI and telehealth in healthcare. Um, there's been a huge surge post COVID. You want to talk about some of the basic challenges you've experienced in your field, Nicole?
Absolutely. So, as you mentioned, especially after COVID-19, Florida has seen an explosion in the use of telehealth platforms, not just for routine care, but behavioral health, post-operative follow-ups, and even triage for urgent care situations. And AI actually has followed right behind, keeping with our topic today. Automated diagnostic suggestions, patient monitoring tools, even scheduling to predict patient flow have all become part of our healthcare environment. As far as these challenges, with telehealth, especially licensing across the states, having providers get registered, having standard of care implemented, and making sure it's consistent across providers who are treating from other states. So there's definitely been a slew of challenges, but also a lot of progress. So, we're really excited about what we're seeing and hoping that the law can keep up.
Absolutely. Yeah. I can see that producing a lot of legal gray areas. That's great to hear that there's been a lot of progress. Let's talk just a little bit about some of the gray areas, some of the stuff you just mentioned, like standard of care uncertainty. Who is responsible if an AI tool gives a wrong diagnosis?
It's a very interesting question. And truthfully, it is, as you said, one big gray area. Unfortunately, the law is not as progressive and quick at times, especially in these areas where technology is just so fast growing and expanding as far as its implementation. So while it can be extremely helpful, physicians especially need to be mindful of how they utilize this technology until the law has caught up. Because they are still going to be held to their standard of care outside of any reliance on these extraneous technological tools. So, with regards to standard of care, your question is who's responsible? So, at the end of the day, we're looking: is it the doctor? Is it the hospital? Is it the software developer? Uh, where do we look? And everybody always wants someone to blame, right? Well, you know, the conservative view and where we're seeing things at this point is the doctor still needing to take responsibility until we see the standard of care evolve, until we see, I think, some better regulation with regards to these technological tools that are being implemented in healthcare. The doctor needs to make sure they're keeping up with their documentation, that they are still providing independent reviews, and at the end of the day, making sure that they are ultimately responsible. AI should be seen as just that, a tool and nothing more.
Not a replacement for the doctor.
Correct. While AI can help with so many different aspects of a physician's practice, from, as I mentioned before, predicting patient flow with scheduling, triaging certain issues that patients are wanting immediate answers for, helping with reading of labs, helping with documentation as far as we're seeing maybe predictive text when it comes to documenting and making it easier and faster for physicians to create records. That's all well and good. And reviews of imaging, something else that we're seeing a lot of AI tools implemented with. But at the end of the day, it is important for these physicians to be documenting what tools they're using, what their independent reviews are, what they're basing their opinions on, really to protect themselves. We also see, we talked a little bit about telehealth and pointing out cross state licensure. So while Florida has implemented a registration system for out-of-state physicians to register to provide telehealth services in Florida, uh, we still do have some gray areas with regards to seeing patients remotely, the standards of care that are implemented, and the use of unvetted or non-FDA cleared AI tools within this telehealth and technological realm.
Oh yeah, that's great information. It's like a whole new frontier. On that note of accountability, medical malpractice liability in a digital world, does using AI increase or reduce liability risk?
I think it's a great question, but also deserves a very lawyer answer. It
Of
depends.
course. Well,
So
yeah.
absolutely. In some ways, as I mentioned, if AI is being used as an appropriate tool, there are a lot of ways that AI can help reduce errors and pick up on nuances in imaging, in lab review, uh, looking at abnormalities that a physician who's trying to balance a clinical schedule and be efficient might miss. But at the same time, relying on the right tools and understanding the limitations of those tools. So we also start looking into when a physician or practice starts implementing AI tools and software, have they been properly trained on what those tools involve, where they're pulling their data from, what their limitations are, and using that tool within the context of its abilities and its limitations. So I think at the end of the day, we're still not at a point where especially from a legal perspective, where we're inserting an AI tool for a physician discretion. But certainly it can reduce errors when used the right way. But it can equally increase exposure if it's relied upon to the detriment of a trained physician's opinion and independent evaluation.
Yep. And building on what you said, it's a tool, it's a technology, but it's not a replacement. That makes sense. Um, how healthcare and medical malpractice attorneys evaluate these cases? I mean, it's a new frontier, a lot of gray area, like you said. I guess let's talk about how plaintiffs' attorneys are starting to are what they're looking for in AI telehealth related malpractice cases.
Sure. So on the plaintiff side, we're asking questions like I just mentioned. Were the providers properly trained on this technology? Where is this technology coming from? Who's producing it? How has it been vetted? Did the software or this tool rely on a specific algorithm? Was that algorithm inaccurate? Was it biased in some way? So those are some the initial questions that we're seeing come out as we evaluate the reasonableness of the providers in relying on these tools.
Yeah, that's fair. Regulatory landscape. Regulators like the FDA and FTC are starting to pay more attention to AI in healthcare. How should medical practices respond to this growing oversight?
Well, first off, creating written policies. And this is age old. I mean, this is employment law. This is reduction of liability from a business corporate standpoint and HR standpoint. So this isn't new. It's applying the procedures that we see to help reduce liability uh, really across the board in business and compliance, but now applying it to these other outlets. So creating written policies that how are AI tools supposed to be implemented in our practice? Who's supposed to be reviewing these recommendations? How is the data validated that is being generated and being utilized in practice? And when can a provider override a suggestion from an AI tool? So having standards, having written policies that you can turn back to when and if something comes up to say, look, we have policies, we had oversight, we follow these protocols to the best of our ability. That all goes hand in hand with your earlier question about limiting exposure versus creating it. Uh, for telehealth, looking at Florida Statute 456.47 is important. Um, Looking at verification of patient identity, proper consents, having documentation, disclosures to your patients about these are the tools we're using, this is how they're being implemented, making sure they're aware that those tools are even being utilized in a practice as part of their care. All of that, I think, will go to those regulatory systems eventually. And I think that helps providers kind of get ahead of where we see that going.
Hey, thank you. That's great advice. And finally, how can a healthcare lawyer at DPHO Partners help medical practices with safely integrating AI and telehealth while minimizing liability?
Well, our goal is to stay ahead of that curve. It is ever changing. It is changing very quickly. But again, we have a lot of tools at our disposal from other areas of practice that can be adapted to the situation. So, as I mentioned, consent forms, reviewing contracts, HIPAA disclosures, indemnity clauses, trainings for staff on proper documentation, being able to help vet AI tools, reviewing the FDA and FTC compliance issues that we discussed. Something I forgot to mention, I mean, the FDA is developing an oversight framework called Software as a Medical Device, which covers AI, machine learning algorithms that diagnose or treat patients. Staying up to date on their literature, on their expectations as that develops, attorneys can help analyze that, can also help guide to some extent our clients on this is what we're seeing come out of these regulatory agencies. And within the landscape of the case law that's already out there, this is how we think it will be implemented or how it'll be analyzed from a legal perspective to, again, stay ahead of that curve. That's the goal. Start getting these systems in place so that you're not catching up and possibly falling to the wayside with these technological nuances. So our goal is we want to help our physicians innovate. We want to help them stay on top of these trends, really also for the benefit of patient care. We've seen so much come out about the benefits, especially about early detection related to AI tools and the digital analytics that are able to be implemented in reviewing and helping with diagnostics. So looking at the future of medicine and how digital technology is going to change that landscape, we want to make sure that we are also staying on top of the law as much as we can so that we can apply these new principles and help our clients stay ahead and evolve as well.
All right. Well, this has been very informative. Thank you for all of this, Nicole. And until next time, have a great day.
Great. Look forward to it. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.